The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
All right. Busy sports day. Alex Rodriguez admitting he used PEDs from 2001 to 2003. We're going to call my buddy JackO at work. This time he actually knows we're calling. I wanted to give him a heads up. I wanted to make sure he didn't have his head in the oven. Before we do, though, we're going to try a little something different with the podcast from now on. I'm going to give you a little table of contents at the beginning because some of these run pretty long. We go in a lot of different directions, so I wanted to give you more of a heads up on what's coming. So what I'm going to do from now on, I'm going to record the podcast. Then I'm going to do the intro after and then tell you, like, here's what happens at whatever mark, and then you kind of know. You can jump around if you want. So for this one, JackO and I talk about A-Rod for about 30 minutes, and then it switches over to some emails for the last 10. And we found out something very, I don't know if it's incriminating or criminating. I don't know what the word is, but about our producer, Joe Mead. All right, so let's go back in time. I called my buddy JackO at work for his take on the Alex Rodriguez situation.
Complex Litigation, this is John.
Oh, my Lord, Johnny!
Are you calling to talk about the Pro Bowl or the Grammys, stimulus package? What do you want to talk about, Willie?
Oh, my Lordy. How you feeling?
Let me read from my prepared statement. No, I'm just kidding.
Hold on. There's a spinning sound? Oh, that's Lou Gehrig spinning in his grave. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. He's no longer feels like the luckiest man alive.
That's right. It's disappointing, obviously, all the more so because I learned about it while listening to your podcast with John Hamm and Seth Meyers on Saturday morning. That was playing in the background as I had the TV on mute and it had breaking news, and then it said breaking news, and I'm like, ooh, what's this? And it was A-Rod, I just did a Freudian slip there myself. A-Rod testing positive for steroids while your voice echoed in the background. It was perfect symmetry.
Oh, and probably as I was posting it on your Facebook page as well.
It was around a similar time frame, yes, indeed.
You know what's sad is within a minute of hearing the news, I went on Google and I Googled A-Rod shirtless. And then went to the image section and picked my favorite shirtless A-Rod image that made him look steroidy.
Yes.
I just, before we get into this, I just want to say, there were 104 people on that list?
I think it was 104.
Well, there's no doubt that list is going to get out, and I'm not going to gloat too much because the odds of some of the Red Sox from that 2003 team not being on this list,
right,
would not be accepted in Vegas. I have my guard up.
Let's hope it's from your mouth to God's ears or Bud Selig's ears or something.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, really. When you, I feel a little bit like I was thinking about it earlier, and I'm like, as a Republican, I've spent 8 years defending the Bush administration, and 5 of those last 8 years defending A-Rod. I feel like that Martin Short character from Saturday Night Live with Harry Shearer with Mike Wallace. Exactly. I feel like I should have a cigarette with like a 3-foot ash hanging from it, going, well, "It's not me, it's him, right?" Sweat pouring down from me. It's a tough position to be in. It's awful. But
you are accusing me. That's what you're doing. You're accusing me.
Exactly. Right. I'm gonna have to start smoking just so I can really get the full look down.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's always freaking A-Rod in these things. I mean, it's just, if there's any kind of controversy or drama or whatever, I mean, it's always freaking A-Rod, be it Tori's book or Madonna or sheet male strippers, what have you. It's always freaking A-Rod, So the fact that
just to clarify, we don't know if they were she-male strippers.
Right,
they certainly resembled she-male strippers or what they might look like, but
masculine, feminine strippers, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, okay.
To clarify, let me apologize to she-males and masculine women everywhere.
Johnny, don't worry. This is a freewheeling conversation for mature audiences.
Good point.
Knock yourself out, buddy.
I have carte blanche to say what I'd like. Especially when John Hamm had to be beeped the other day, so now I feel free rein to do whatever I want. So, but it's always freaking A-Rod. And the thing that really bothers me is like you said, there's 104 guys on that list. and the only one to come out now is A-Rod. It's supposed to be like a secret thing, and not that I'm like Mr. Privacy and due process, but you know what? If it's supposed to be kept private, it's really interesting to me that A-Rod's name is the one that is leaked. I was saying go ahead, I'm sorry.
I couldn't agree more. If I were a baseball player who played in 2003, I would be absolutely violated, and I haven't been watching like the legal part of this coverage. I'm sure Roger Cossack has gotten involved by now,
right.
And if he did, I missed it. But I don't understand how this isn't like just a major lawsuit against the players' union by the players.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. If this thing was like supposed to be super top secret, and the union like guaranteed that, which is the only reason they allowed it in the first place, I believe.
Right.
Even though there was public pressure and what have you, but it was like sworn these will never come out. It's going to be like locked in a secret vault or something, you know.
Like, couldn't he sue them for?
I would think he could sue somebody.
What term would it be? Character assassin, whatever the legal term for character assassination is.
I mean, well, you can't say it's like libel or slander or anything because it turns out that it's true. So you can only libel somebody with false information.
Well, not libel or slander, but they're like.
Well, it's a violation of his privacy. It's like leaking someone's like medical records, basically. Like it's a HIPAA violation in legal terms. There's a statute, a federal statute, which prohibits medical records from being distributed because it's your private information. It's a similar thing.
Right.
Now I'm sure there's a little bit different standard in baseball because he's a professional baseball player and the contracts and what have you. But I mean, it seems really unfair. And I was saying to somebody at work today, and I'm not normally conspiracy minded, but I said the Yankees, instead of going out and getting Sabathia to Sharon Burnett, they should have spent some money on buying Bud Selig, like the Red Sox obviously did.
Right.
Because we had the Mitchell Report, which is run by George Mitchell, who's like a director of the Red Sox, owns stock in the Red Sox or somehow involved with them. And the whole thing is like totally New York centric. He couldn't find anybody anywhere that ever saw any Red Sox player involved in this.
Hold on, you better admit that you were kidding about the Red Sox buying Bud Selig. I mean, just admit that it was
half and half. I was kidding. But I mean, it's ridiculous. No, I was kidding. He's not bought and paid for. He's just friendly with their owners. And it's just odd to me that there's never been a hint of a Red Sox involved in this. When guys like Nomar and Big Papi and Veritek have very questionable statistics with a precipitous drop-off and mysterious injuries after testing became more rigorous.
Wait, you don't think it was a coincidence that Nomar's wrist tendon split in half?
It's a little curious to me. And speaking of shirtless photos, remember the famous Sports Illustrated cover with him looking like Lou Ferrigno, you know?
Johnny, you're fired up. I haven't heard you this fired up since they banned tailgating from the whole CrossFit and Field. It's the last time I've seen you this angry. I gotta say though, I think your premise was wrong about the Yankees using that money to butter up Bud Selig. I would have done like a whole background check on every clubhouse attendant, anyone who hung around the Red Sox from 01 to 04, and then just overwhelm those guys with money to just say what they knew.
Absolutely. I mean,
there's got to be some clubhouse attendant named Murph or Sully out there who worked for the Red Sox for like 2 years and cleaned up syringes. And
well, in a couple of days I'm going on vacation to Mexico, but so I don't have time to do it this weekend. I'll be out of the country. But when I come back, I am flooding the streets of South Boston with walking around money to get anyone associated with the Red Sox to spill the beans. I'm going to every South Boston Irish dive bar, and I'm going to find someone who worked there as like an assistant clubhouse attendant or something.
Hey, you know what? As far as I know, my team was clean.
That's right.
That's all I can tell you, Johnny. Except for Manny Alexander, we got rid of him.
It's the first time in my life that I've ever agreed with Kurt Schilling when he's like, if you're going to throw A-Rod under the bus, then everybody on that list better, they have to release everybody's name now, you know?
Well, if you were a player from that era, wouldn't you like hold a press conference and say, I swear on on my life of my kids, I swear to God, I swear on my deceased parents, I swear on everybody, I never did anything. I don't want my name ever included in discussion of the 104.
And the opposite, if you are a guy that's on that list of 103, you ought to get out in front of the story and come out now and just admit it and be like, I'm on the list, it was a terrible mistake, and let's move on,
No, I wouldn't do that.
Well, because you have to figure it's coming out anyway.
No, I would just hope it didn't come out.
You might as well get in front of things. Be a man,
I also would have, props to A-Rod for coming out with Peter Gammons today, which we have, I guess we're running on SportsCenter tonight. There's a story about it on the main page. But
right.
A-Rod, admitted that he used from 2001 to 2003. I would have gone the other way and just said, hey, it was a random test. How do you know that wasn't Gino Petrali's? and played that card.
Well, the thing that gets guys in trouble, though, is like Clemens denying it and Bonds obviously lying to a grand jury about it.
No, it's true.
You know?
It's the Richard Nixon example. Like, the actual crime isn't as bad as the cover-up.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's go over some of the stuff A-Rod said. So he said he used performance enhancers during a 3-year period beginning in 2001.
Right.
Which gives him something in common with, I think, 99% of the guys who played from 95 to 2006.
Exactly.
His excuse was, I felt an enormous amount of pressure when I arrived in Texas. Felt all the weight of the world on top of me to perform. Back then, baseball was a different culture. It was very loose. I was young. I was stupid. I was naive. As opposed to now when I'm dating Madonna.
Right.
I wanted to prove to everyone that I was worth being one of the greatest players of all time. I did take a banned substance for that. I'm very sorry and deeply, deeply regretful. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to a strip joint.
Well, the thing is, like, I saw a guy on the news yesterday, and he was sort of tongue-in-cheek, but he made a good point in his joking fashion of, you know, he was sort of defending steroids in a way, or the culture of it. And he's like, look, if you were involved in some high-level pursuit in your career, and there was some sort of a pill or a syringe that you could take, and it would guarantee you that it would make you the best person at your job, and everyone else in your job was doing it, like A-Rod said, like the loose culture. It wasn't like the horror and the shame and what have you now of a million people tut-tutting and tisk-tisking and pointing their fingers at people. You know, if you're looking around the clubhouse and every other guy is shooting up and he's like, yeah, it makes me recover from my workouts better, I can lift more weight, I have more endurance, I'm faster, whatever, are you not going to take it when everyone else is and baseball's looking the other way?
Well, you're asking the wrong guy, because if it ever came out about the cheating I did at Holy Cross, I think my 3.04 would be in jeopardy. Mr. Simmons, is it true that you tape cheat sheets to parts of your body, under your pants leg and under your shirt? I'm very regretful. I'm sorry.
That's just it. I mean, you know, people cheat on their taxes and get made Treasury Secretary, you know?
Yeah.
People cheat in college or what have you. So it's like, it's awful. I wish
this is
could
worse.
Be pure and a paragon of virtue, but it's sadly not the case. I can't say as I'm like, and maybe I'm more cynical, but I can't say like, oh my God, I can't watch baseball. I'm so shocked and chagrined. I mean, you know, when it was a breaking news on Saturday, I wasn't like, oh my God, my breath wasn't taken away, you know?
That's going to be my next question. Were you more shocked by this or Clay Aiken coming out of the closet?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we've really reached the point where it's like, we're more surprised if we hear somebody did not take steroids, you know? Well,
that was my next question. So let's work backwards. Who didn't take steroids from 1993 to 2006?
I mean, I'd be surprised if Jeter took it.
Yeah, let's come up with the top 10. I definitely Jeter. No doubt about it, Pedro.
Yeah.
I still, you know, maybe it's just my man crush on Manny, but I just think he's too, I just can't see him sticking to a steroid cycle and I don't think he has the native intelligence to pull it off.
I mean, I
really
wouldn't think like a Greg Maddux who throws 60 miles an hour and throws junk is going to feel the need for it, you know?
Maddux was up there. Trevor Hoffman, I think.
Probably like a Mike Messina. I really can't see him doing it.
Yeah, Messina. We know Tony Gwynn wasn't doing it because he was just eating.
Right.
Maybe if he had taken performance enhancers, he would have weighed 320 pounds.
It could have been, right. Some of it might have turned into muscle, yeah.
He would have looked like Kirby Puckett, but 50 pounds heavier.
Some of it might have accidentally turned into muscle, right?
Anybody else?
I'm trying to think like who's prominent in baseball.
I feel like Tom Glavine wouldn't have. I love that we're just like basically making these hypothetical morality statements on everybody played. But
I mean, if you think about like the Braves, well, see, it's hard to think about like pitchers doing it because the old thing was pitchers couldn't really lift weights because they would get too muscle bound, and you were supposed to be like flexible and thin or whatever, you know.
Yeah, but then you think like Kevin Brown is one of the guys who did it, and he wasn't like what you would think a steroids guy would be. You know?
Right. And look how well that worked out for him. That really helped his career leaps and bounds, didn't it?
Well, got him a $90 million contract.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Until he murdered your Yankees a few years later.
Right. Didn't really translate to the field, sadly, for me. Right.
Yeah, my whole thing is, we know steroids have been around longer since 92.
Yeah.
Which seems to be when everybody kind of thinks the steroid thing started happening.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile, I mean, watch Rambo 2 sometime. Watch Rocky 4. Watch Terminator.
Right.
Steroids were around in the 80s, and steroids were also around in the 70s.
I mean, when did they start really in the Olympics? Well, like the East German women, were like doing stuff in the, the East German government was probably like in the 60s, right? Late 60s, early 70s. They probably started using it pretty heavy.
I find it hard to believe that nobody in baseball until the 90s started dabbling into the steroid station.
I think the thing is though, there used to be a thing in baseball about like you didn't want to lift weights too much. Guys never used to lift weights way back when because the big thing was you had to be like flexible. If you were too muscle bound, they didn't think you could throw right. So, and I mean, the baseball players never used to work out. Or smoking cigarettes and.
Ooh, Johnny, just got breaking news. Edward Norton has admitted to performance-enhancing drugs on the set of American History X.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you making that up?
No, I made it up.
It sounded plausible.
I just felt like a breaking news.
He was pretty big in that movie.
He did put on like 25 pounds of muscle.
He did. I mean, some questions. I mean, I'm sure a lot of actors use it. Like you just mentioned, Rambo and Rocky,
I think Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. I mean, he hasn't even really denied it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would,
My whole thing is,
quick.
If somebody like Jake Gyllenhaal is putting on 35 pounds of muscle for a movie, that's suspicious. I mean, that's more improbable than somebody like Lenny Dykstra.
Oh, yeah.
35 pounds. Because Jake Gyllenhaal's not an athlete. He's just like some skinny dude who got into acting. You're not just going to put on 35 pounds of muscle.
Right. You just can't start that if you've never had like a weight regimen and stuff, and training athletically in your life,
Right.
The thing I can never wrap my head around, and we've talked about this in the past, though, is the difference between baseball and football. Like all these football guys like Sean Merriman or Rodney Harrison, and it's like a common thing. Oh, of course he plays football. Of course he was on steroids.
Right.
Every offensive lineman in like the 1980s and 70s and 80s,
No, it's because it's mainly and probably solely because of the whole stat thing.
It's just the stats in baseball.
It really is.
And it looks like it's artificial now.
You even look at the home run leaders, and Sammy Sosa is sitting next to Willie Mays in the leaderboard.
Yeah, that is.
It's just kind of violating because it's like the say hey kid,
Right, and he did it all natural and did it the right way, But I mean, the thing now when it becomes clear that Canseco was right and it was so prevalent. I mean, I read stuff today. Well, people at work are saying, well, there goes the Hall of Fame for A-Rod. Well, are we going to have a period now, 15 years from now, when all these guys have reached their 5-year past the point of retirement? Are we going to have a thing where there's just no Hall of Fame inductions for like 10 years? We're just going to have none because every guy was on steroids. Are they going to go into the hall with plaques that all have asterisks, or is it just going to be like put in historical context of that was a certain time in baseball when everybody was juicing? So take the numbers with a grain of salt, but the numbers are what they are,
Somber Hall of Fame induction class this year. Just Dave Roberts.
Yeah, that's exactly
only
right.
inducted this year.
Right. Sorry, for the third year in a row, there'll be no Hall of Fame class because everyone that's up for eligibility is tainted.
Well, listen, I've said this before. I'm pretty passionate about this. The Hall of Fame is a museum. It's not a morality contest, and it's not a popularity contest.
Exactly.
It's a museum that's supposed to show, like if I take my son there 12 years from now, he's going to learn about baseball and who the relevant guys were and how it came to be and what the relevant moments were. That's the whole point of the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So to not have Pete Rose in there and to not have like Bonds in there and McGuire and all these people, I just think it's so stupid and short-sighted. Like just give those guys a special wing, give them the cheater ring or whatever you want to call it, or the disgraced ring, or paint the walls black.
Or mention it on their plaque or something, I mean, you have guys in the Hall of Fame that were racists and drug addicts and gamblers and what have you, and it's like, Ty Cobb wasn't a good guy, but he put up amazing numbers in baseball. You wouldn't want your son to grow up to be like Ty Cobb. He was a bad guy, but he was a hell of a baseball player. That's what it's all about, is the numbers,
He was a bad guy, and even worse, he gave us a terrible Robert Wool movie. I think that was more unforgivable than the gambling.
And how do you distinguish in this era if a pitcher was on steroids throwing to a batter on steroids? Like, does that mean the batter's numbers are tainted because, maybe it would have been a fly ball to the warning track and it turned out to be a home run, but maybe the guy throwing without the steroids, he only throws 89 instead of 91, I mean, I don't know how you differentiate that.
I also think the writers who are so pious about it now and just go after all these guys, that drives me crazy too, is how everybody violated the sanctity of the game. Meanwhile, I have friends that work for ESPN. I remember having conversations with my buddy Gus, who was talking to people, who were covering baseball for us, and they were telling Gus who the big steroid guys were. Like, it's not like this wasn't like Rock Hudson coming out of the closet.
Right. In 98, I mean, everybody talked about the Andro and
Right.
at the time with Mark McGuire, and everybody winked at it and said, like, obviously he's not just taking Andro. That's like
Nobody
a cover.
cared. Well, remember what happened? The guy who looked in his locker became a pariah.
Right.
The guy was like, oh, he violated the code. Like, everybody was so wrapped into this code, and these guys are heroes, leave them alone, and,
Right.
you know, I don't know. I feel like they enabled it to some degree. Nobody had the balls to write any of this stuff.
Right. And I don't know. I don't really know what, like, was the tipping point that it became, like, a thing. But then once it became a thing, then, of course, everybody had to, like, get involved, and everybody had to, like, oh, my God.
I could tell you what the tipping point was. When a black man broke Roger Maris's record, Mark McGuire's record.
That's
No,
right.
I'm kidding.
That's what outrage.
No, but I mean, that was
yeah.
like, when you look back at the way the Bonds thing was treated versus the Clemens thing, really one of the more inappropriately racial double standards that we've had. Although with Bonds, like, I feel like if he was white, we would have hated him just as much.
Yeah, I agree. Now,
I'm saying we, I mean the nation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He was just such a loathsome guy in so many, in you know, just the way he treated everybody and just the demeanor that he had. He was just like inherently unlikable.
Right.
And I'm trying to think what white athlete would be like that.
Well, like a Sean Avery in hockey, maybe.
Yeah, he's like kind of that same, just kind of rubbed everybody the wrong way and was always, so I never felt like, but the thing that bothered me was with Clemens, you know, that all the same signs were there.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I don't know, you have to hear about how Clemens had this great workout. What a work ethic. Now,
Yeah.
this guy shows up at the park at 6 a.m. And meanwhile, you know, his career was basically on its way out in 96. All of a sudden he's winning Cy Young Awards again.
I mean, and one of the things is, like, you look back now at the whole Piazza and the World Series thing with the broken bat and throwing the bat, and now you look back and you're like, my God, how did we not know he was on steroids? Like, his reaction where he looked like he was like Charles Manson, basically.
You know what? And that's what really bugs me about this A-Rod thing, is it's really taking attention away from the vilification of Roger Clemens, in my opinion.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. My one hope is that, you know, Red Sox fans and other enemies of the Yankees will be confused whether to chant A-Fraud or A-Roid. So hopefully that will be confused and just a muddle and won't be one distinctive chant. So.
Oh, Johnny?
Yeah.
There's got to be no confusion.
You think A-Roid all the way?
Oh, I think A-Roid in a landslide.
Yeah, we got to get those other names out there.
I'm gonna also predict this. I think there's going to be a couple Freudian slips, as like you had on the beginning of the podcast. I could see on SportsCenter a couple times somebody doing the Freudian A-Roid slip, or like Jerry Remy accidentally saying it, and then it's too similar to A-Rod. Like it's too easy.
Well, unfortunately, unfortunately, he's got. You would feel bad for the guy, and then you remember that he makes $300 million and could date any woman that he wanted on the earth, and basically buy and sell anything he wanted. So, you know, your compassion only goes so far.
Hold on, a couple more quotes from him. He said he's sorry for his Texas years and he apologizes to the fans of Texas. Well, that'll make it better.
He has a lot to apologize to the fans of Texas for, actually.
Yeah. Well,
getting out of the contract and running away screaming when he looked at the team he had, that's another thing.
Let me ask you this. Should he apologize when, according to, hold on, we have this here. According to our story, A-Rod in his 10 seasons where he didn't use PEDs, 309 batting average, 39 homers a year, 574 slugging. In the 3 years in Texas where he did use PEDs, 305, 52 homers, 615 slugging. I don't think he has anything to apologize about. I think the Rangers fans were happy.
Yeah, they got their
boost.
money's worth. They got an MVP. They got to see, you know, a lot of A-Rod jerseys were sold, you know.
If I'm a Rangers fan, I'm thinking, hey, save the apology, A-Rod. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for the 156 homers you hit for us.
They're probably like, I wish you shared them with your teammates. You should have paid for them for the whole clubhouse.
Well, unfortunately, I think if you look at some of the guys who played on those Rangers teams, I think there might have been some sharing.
Might have been one or two that might have dabbled themselves.
He said, this part I liked. The more honest we can all be, the quicker we can get baseball back to where it needs to be. You lied last year to Katie Couric.
2 years ago, 07.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, whatever.
He was lying to himself, though, too, is what he said, which is a really kind of a cop-out answer. But,
yeah.
You know, at least it was to Katie Couric and not like a grand jury or a congressional hearing, you know.
Well, as he explained it, I wasn't being truthful with myself.
Right.
How could I be truthful with Katie Couric or CBS? I like that. That's a nice little twisted around her.
Boris wrote that well. That's good work by Boris and his team. Yeah.
If I wasn't being truthful with myself, how could I be truthful with Katie Couric?
Right.
That's a great yearbook quote.
It's good. When I come home with it for a night out, after a night out with the boys, and my wife's like, "How many beers have you had tonight?" I'll be like, "Honey, if I'm not being truthful with myself about how many beers I've had, how can I possibly be truthful with you?" It works in like every situation, you know.
John, who's the pregnant girlfriend in your car? Honey, he said, A-Rod also said, "I started experimenting with things that today are not legal." He's talking about drugs, not females. That today are not accepted. Ever since that incident happened, I realized that I don't need any of it. All my years in New York have been clean, or so I'd like you to think.
It's good.
Do you believe him?
Well, he has a good answer for that, actually, that I forget what year it was, 03 or something, and he had some kind of weird injury in spring training, and he's like, I guess he said to himself, is what the gist I took from the article on ESPN is that the gist he took was this it was such a weird injury, it had to be caused by the steroids, and he was like, I could really like hurt myself and, you know, have bad tendons or whatever and really cause some injuries, so like, why am I doing this?
He didn't.
I'll put it this way, I want to believe it. I want to believe that he's been clean as a Yankee. I really, really want to.
Yeah.
I think the important thing now is for all Yankee fans just to rally. This could be like in the 1970s when there were like team turmoil, and what really angers me is like the New York papers like bashing him and calling him A-Royd, and there's a thing today like A-hole because he's digging himself a deeper hole. Ha ha ha. I mean, the real enemy here is the Red Sox. Let's just focus. Let's just rally as a team. I think it should be like a rallying point that there's like anti-Sports Illustrated in the Yankee clubhouse between Verducci co-writing A-Rod's book and then this Selena Roberts or whatever her name is bringing this up to, that should really be like the rallying cry. Time to circle the wagons.
I got a great email, which unfortunately I didn't save, saying that Joe Torre's book is now the Gary Condit of this thing, with the A-Rod part being the 9/11 part, where it's like, it was this huge story that has just now vanished off the face of the earth.
Exactly. He's exactly right. I wonder if Torre feels good about that because it helps to somewhat less, doesn't tarnish his Yankee legacy as much, or if he feels bad because now he won't sell as many books.
I think he feels bad.
Yeah, because it drove it off the front pages or the sports pages, so he won't sell as many books. Yeah, I think so too.
I think when you're talking about anybody who's played for or managed the Yankees, shouldn't the phrase tarnished his legacy, doesn't that just automatically get thrown in now unless there's like you have to say
something to unless there's some definitive proof to the opposite? No, I don't say that.
You've been let down so many times by your heroes. I mean, yeah.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the whole A-Rod Jeter thing is like Mantle Maris all over again, where basically in their heart of hearts, Yankee fans are like, well, Jeter's the real Yankee, like Mantle was perceived to be. So I'm sure a lot of Yankee fans are like, oh, yeah, I always knew that. He's not a Yankee, you know? He's not really a Yankee.
The Yankee fans never felt like he was a Yankee.
No, they didn't. Now, you know, I'm just a flat-out whore, basically, so I just root for the laundry, as Jerry Seinfeld would say. I just root for the Yankees, you know? Now, Jeter's my favorite player, and I have more of a bias towards him, too, but A-Rod's a Yankee. That's good enough for me, you know? Mistakes were made. He's apologized. Let's just move on and win the World Series.
My years in New York have been clean.
Right.
A couple emails for you before you go. Jeff from Needham writes, "Oh, Johnny." Logan from Charlottesville thinks that the Hall of Fame should give plaques that have giant asterisks on them.
There you go.
Or if they don't want to do that and they want to leave these guys out, he suggests that they should rename it the Hall of Guys We Like and Respect Unconditionally.
Yeah,
I like that. Colin in Annapolis, Maryland writes, this latest Sports Nation poll asked if it guaranteed you a $250 million contract like A-Rod, would you take performance-enhancing drugs? 63% said yes, 37% no. That only tells me one thing. 37% of the people that took this poll are liars.
He's right. I mean, that's like what we said before. If you could take it and be the best in your field and everyone else was doing it, everybody would, you know? And a lot of guys, even knowing that steroids allegedly, not allegedly, they cause health problems that can shorten your life, you know, guys are going to take that. It's like rolling the dice, you know?
And Dan from Hoboken writes, you might have to call JackO this week to discuss this. Well, you got your wish.
Thanks, Dan.
The Yankees stealing him from us has turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to my beloved Boston Red Sox.
Is that you, or is that someone, an email?
That was Dan. That was Dan's theory. And when you think about it,
Dan from Hoboken is a Red Sox fan?
Hey, I don't judge.
And the notion that the Yankees, quote unquote, stole him, that is such revisionist history. He wanted to be a Red Sox. The Red Sox wanted him, but the union put some roadblocks in the way because of his contract, and they tried to, negotiate down his contract, and the union kept standing in the way, and the Red Sox folded, and then the Yankees swooped in and took him. It's not like the Yankees did something nefarious or anything.
I couldn't agree more, and I actually don't think the Red Sox folded as much as they were playing a little game of chicken with A-Rod and Boris, thinking that they were the only bidder, and then the Yankees swooped in after Aaron Boone tore his knee?
Yeah, playing basketball, yeah.
Yeah. And
I never understood really the Red Sox fans' hatred of A-Rod. I understand because he's A-Rod and he slapped Arroyo's glove, but they hated him before that. He wanted to be a Red Sox. They wanted him, and then it didn't work out. So they just, in their natural inbred reaction, they hated it. They hate on A-Rod.
Johnny,
I can understand hating Damon, and he's a traitor and yada yada. Okay, but A-Rod, I never understood the vitriol really.
Johnny, don't antagonize your New England fan base.
I really have grown to so dislike the Red Sox. I was reading on the Boston Globe today and all the comments from their, all these idiots, and I cannot wait until Big Papi comes out so I can read the same idiots with a complete justification. Well, he was just trying to be the best, and everybody was doing it, and yada yada. I cannot wait for that. That's what I want for my birthday, is just release the names and let there be just 3 Red Sox on there, please. That's all I ask. I don't ask for a lot.
If they released the names and somebody said, "Hey, here are the names," I think I would take my dog Rufus for a walk first to get excited, like a 25-minute walk to really get properly fired up to read the list, and then I would have my wife separate it by 10 at a time, and I would read 10, and then I would go walk around the house, go back. I really think it would be the most exciting internet moment that's ever happened.
Remember when the Mitchell Report was going to come out and they had the fake list that everybody got emails of, and the fake list was better than the real list? Everyone was so excited about the fake list. I remember because there was a lot of Red Sox on there, so I was so happy. And then it was the real list was a letdown because it was all Yankees. So please let there be a list that's the fake list that has a lot of Red Sox on there. That's all I want.
My friend Connor, a.k.a. Connor Shell, the ESPN executive who doesn't think I should have friends on my podcast.
Right.
He just emailed and said, people are saying that Gammon's getting an A-Rod interview is a coup. I argue that this is a bigger deal. Tomorrow on Around the Horn, Tuesday, Grammy Award winner Lil Wayne.
Really?
He's going to match wits with Woody Page, Jay Mariotti, and Michael Smith.
Well, he's been on before on First and 10 matching wits with Skip Bayless, so.
But Around the Horn.
That's big time.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
They're not going to freeze him out, and he's going to make it to the finals, I would think.
Johnny, last question.
Yes.
How does A-Rod get or how do the fans at New Yankee Stadium respond to one Alex Rodriguez on opening day?
Oh, I think he's going to get a standing O. I think it'll be like a Giambi thing. I think they're going to circle the wagons and embrace him. I don't think everyone in the stadium will be, but I think the majority will be standing ovation. That will outnumber the people sitting on their hands or being chagrined. Now is the time for all Yankee fans to come home. Come home. Don't throw Yankee players under the bus. He's a Yankee. That's all we need to know. We're going to support him.
Johnny, you didn't disappoint.
Thanks, buddy.
Hang in there. And by the way, somebody started a JackO Facebook group.
I know. You pointed that out to me. I'm very flattered. I'm flattered, and I'm a little concerned by the fact that their creation date was July 2nd, which is my birthday. I was trying to rack my brain to see if I had mentioned that in the podcast before, if I was really being stalked. Either way, I'm intrigued by it. So
I like the fact that they didn't have a picture of you, so they used a picture of George Steinbrenner just gazing out in the distance with the Yankees hat and looking like he's about to be driven to a nursing home.
My wife,
a fine choice.
My wife showed it to her mother, and my mother-in-law was like, "That's not John." She's like, "No, that's George Steinbrenner." So it's
good. Well, you could sign up for the JackO Facebook group on Facebook. I think it's just called JackO.
There's another one my friends found it's called Fans of Johnny Are You Worried Yet? But somebody on there was bashing me, so that's hurtful. I don't like to see that. So
yeah, we're all friends.
It's all right. It's all good.
We're all friends there. I'd like to see that Facebook group get up to 35, 40 people. So.
I want to have a whole army out there, right?
Also, since we're on the subject of the internet, somebody apparently is pretending they're me on Twitter.
Really?
Which I don't even know how to. That's the one technology I refuse to acknowledge or pretend that I even want to get into. So if you ever get anything from Twitter from me, it's not me.
It's not you. Good
Yeah,
point.
there we go.
I just want to say as an aside, I really have a newfound respect for Joe Meade because in that podcast with John Hamm and Seth Meyers, when you had like a couple minutes with Joe Meade, I learned that he went to Notre Dame and his father went to the Naval Academy. Now, those are two of my favorite institutions outside of Holy Cross.
He's one of America's heroes.
Two of my favorite institutions that I never attended, but I'm a huge Notre Dame and Navy fan, so
there you go,
big
Joe
props
Meade.
for Joe Meade.
Appreciate the kind words, JackO.
Joe, put that on your resume, Joe. All right, Johnny.
All right, buddy.
Talk to you soon. Take
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, I wanted to get through a couple of quick emails first before we go. Let's start with this one. Cornelius from South Bend. You know where this is going. He writes, you should have Joe Meade bring in his guitar and serenade the crowd during an upcoming podcast like he used to do at Notre Dame Student Center during 25-cent hot dog nights. If he happens to be smoking and drinking, even better. Do you own a guitar, Joe Meade?
I sure do.
And you've serenaded people at the Notre Dame Student Center?
I have. LaFortune.
Wow. I mean, if we learn one astounding thing like this about you every week, I think 2009 is going to be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, that's a win right there.
Do you play any of Ray LaMontagne's stuff? LaMontagne?
You know, I haven't heard of him. You know, when you were going through those coffee house singers, I know Natalie Merchant, but I don't know Ray.
Ray, I actually heard on the coffee house as I was driving around with my son yesterday after he had projectile exorcist vomited all over himself and I was driving him back home. The car smelled of puke, he's screaming, and Ray LaMontagne comes on singing, "You Are the Best Thing." That's one of his songs. The chorus is, "You are the best thing." I mean, this guy is the most whip singer on the planet, which brings us to our next email. It's from Zaheva in New York. I am troubled. I am your biggest fan. I've been reading your columns for at least 5 years. I listen to every podcast. I lament my sports bigamy. I constantly reference you. You're one of my interests on Facebook. I would marry you if you weren't already married, etc., etc., etc. It's pretty interesting, etc., etc., etc. there. I also love Ray LaMontagne. His second album is possibly my favorite album ever made. I am so conflicted in my allegiances. Please advise. I think this is like a Jack and Locke on Lost. I think it's just two separate camps and you just can't reconcile them. What do you think, Joe?
I think you're right, Bill.
Yeah. So hey, I'd get a therapist. Jason in San Diego writes, so I was listening to your podcast with JackO and you brought up an artist by the name of Ray LaMontagne. Funny story about his overdramatic music. During a one-night stand, I was at a female's house, and she thought she would put on mood music. She put on Ray LaMontagne. Needless to say, it was the most awkward night ever, as she started crying mid-sex because one of her songs reminded her of a dead grandparent. I mean, what do you do at this point? Comfort her or just run? She then proceeded to give me her number, which I deleted within 10 seconds of walking out the front door. All of this because of, Ray, I want to spend every moment of my life with you, LaMontagne. I mean, this guy... This Ray LaMontagne is really like wreaking havoc. I'm terrified of him. One more. Daniel in San Francisco asks, is anyone else sending in emails asking if Joe Meade is really the guy from Juno? What's the answer?
The guy from Juno, like Michael Cera's character?
Yeah.
I'm not really him. Why is that even a question?
It's from, Daniel from San Francisco asked.
All right, Daniel.
Oh, Danny, you anchored Joe Meade. But wait a second, we just found out you have a guitar.
I do.
So did the guy from Juno.
I know, I'm actually a big Michael Cera fan.
And you're a big Michael Cera fan.
Yeah.
This could be next week's revelation, that you're actually the dude from Juno. I had one more. Brian in Timonian, Maryland asks, is JackO the least busy person in the history of employment? The guy always picks up his phone after the first ring. And it seems like he's never getting caught at a hectic time. Every time I make a business call, I always get directed to the person's voicemail. What gives here, Bill? I don't know the answer. JackO manages people. He's got time. I don't really know the answer. Joe, maybe we should find this out for next week.
To be fair, I think sometimes it may ring twice, and I cut out one of the rings.
Oh, you're right. See, I'm glad I asked you. Yeah, sometimes it'll ring like 4 times, and you make it seem like he picks up right away. Usually,
though, he does pick up right away. I don't know if that's when he knows you might be calling or what.
But I usually don't tip them off.
Yeah,
Like today I
usually it's a
tipped them off.
surprise. Yeah.
Today I tipped them off. Okay. Well, if you want to keep asking podcast-related emails, by all means, send them in. We will do our best to figure out the answers. In the meantime, that's it for the BS Report. I think we have 2 more coming this week. I am still frantically trying to finish my book. I'm almost done. I apologize for the lack of columns. I do have one coming this week. Hopefully by the second week of March, we'll be back on a good column schedule. And in the meantime, hang in there, and we'll talk to you soon.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.